After running a lot of hills for the past 2 weeks and with plans on integrating them into my upcoming winter half marathon block, I thought we could have a chat about how you guys can put more hills into your weekly schedule to get yourself feeling stronger than ever leading into your big spring training blocks. Now I know there's a small group of you out there heading off to Valencia very shortly or Malaga Marathon, so your season isn't quite done yet, but for a lot of us we are in a transitional phase where we're either working on cross country or we're going into a new training block, and right now we're in that phase where we could do with a little bit of extra strength. Now whether you set yourself goal races or just like to race, the bulk of them are in the spring through to autumn. There are of course some fantastic winter races out there, but cross country is the main focus for a lot of people. So training hills is a good way to get some strength in the legs to prepare for what's to come. So let's get started then and have a chat about 5 ways that you guys can integrate hills into your training. 5 different ways that you can put them in to your weekly schedule and, as I've alluded to already, get you strong, ready for those spring races. And we'll kickstart with the easiest thing, which is your easy runs. Make them a little bit hillier, make them a little bit lumpier than you normally would. So if you tend to run on the flat and you have hillier routes available to you, it definitely might be worth considering dropping that in once a week to kickstart things. I'll be honest with you, it might take you a couple of weeks to adapt, and if you've got a session the next day, then maybe just take your foot off the gas on those sessions for the first couple of weeks whilst you get used to adding in the extra climbing. After that, you should be good to go. It doesn't take that long to adapt and your body will thank you for it in the long run. Now I'm going to say something quite controversial here. I think a lot of people are anti doing this because of the world we're currently living in with social media apps. Of course, our average pace doesn't look as good when we're running on the hills. Our heart rate is a little bit higher. That is just par for the course when it comes to running hills. And really, the new Strava AI feature right now is reminding me that I'm running slower than my usual paces I have over the last 30 days because I've been running a lot more hills. You kind of have to shove all that rubbish to one side and understand that actually that doesn't really matter. What matters is getting strong and loading up your legs ready so that they can tackle what's to come when the bigger work comes around. And the second way you could do it is adding in some hill sprints or hill strides, whatever you want to call it. They are really good for promoting good form, good biomechanics. They are so damn helpful. For a lot of my athletes, I'll throw some strides on the end of their easy run the day before they have a session. It is just such a good way to prep the body, adds a little bit of tension into the muscles as well, makes them primed and ready for the session the next day. There is absolutely no reason why those 4x20-second strides cannot be moved onto a hill. It, as I said, is going to promote better biomechanics. You're going to open up your gait cycle a bit better. You're going to drive up the hill, and that knee lift is going to become more prominent as you are driving up that hill as opposed to being on the flat. Plus, of course, it's safer. You are putting less impact through the body as you're running uphill. So it's a win-win situation. You're gaining a bit of strength by moving it to the hills and of course working on that form and efficiency. So of course strides are there for a reason, but right now whilst we're in this maybe winter phase or in a phase where we're building towards a newer, bigger training block in the future, there's no reason why we can't move them onto the hills. And the third way we can incorporate them, doing some hill reps. So these are different to hill strides or sprints. These are what I would class as anywhere from sort of 30-second efforts up to 3-minute efforts, and throughout a training block you might start at the 30 seconds and start to extend all the way up to the 3 minutes. These are not sprints, as I alluded to. These tend to be done usually around tempo or threshold effort, and they are literally done by effort. You kind of have to scrap pace when you're going up a hill, and again depends on the gradient that you're using, but they're so good. Once again, I will just reiterate from the previous point, biomechanics in particular for that, and for me the massive benefit I find is getting a better knee drive, opening up those hips so much better, and as I've also said, safer speed because there's less impact going through the legs. Not to mention the fact the strength we gain from going up a hill is absolutely fantastic. So the longer we make these reps, of course, the better those workouts are going to become over the week. The stronger we're going to feel, ready for when we hit the flat again, ready for those spring marathons or half marathons, 10Ks, 5Ks, whatever we are training for. Again, if you can do them on grass, even better. I tend to personally start around the 1 minute rep mark and move through up to a 3-minute rep. So I might start with something like 10 or 12 by 1 minute and finish off with 5 by 3 minutes towards the end of a block. So I end up doing 15 minutes of hills broken up into 5 by 3 minutes. They tend to be just so good, as I said, for building strength. And I won't lie, I came off the back of a hill block, let's say last year, came into this year and ran one of my fastest races that I've ever run at the Lisry 8 at the beginning of the year, and I can assure you my legs felt as strong as an ox when I I hit the start line up there. So again, these are just an extension of the strides and the sprints. And again, we're just working really hard up those hills, but keeping it nice and controlled. We're not gassing ourselves out. Think threshold effort. The fourth way is something called Kenyan hills. I'm not sure how many of you have heard that type of workout before. Effectively, we could rename it and call it continuous hills. Effectively, what we're doing is we're taking a longer period of time, 6, 8, 10, 12 minutes maybe even, where we're just running continuous hills. But when I say continuous, we're going up and down. So you don't need to find one long big hill for you to run up. We're looking at basically putting the effort in going up and down. So again, for me, what I like to do is find a hill that I can run up for, let's say 2.5, 3 minutes, spin, come back round and do it twice within 1 rep, then take a 2 or 3 minute standing rest. Tends to be 3 at the start as I'm building back into Kenyan hills, and then 2 as I get a little bit fitter through the block. This tends to be reserved a little bit more for if you have a hillier race coming up. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend Kenyan hills if you haven't got any majorly hilly races on the horizon, but they are really good just to drop in the odd 1 or 2 here and there, maybe towards the end of the training block. But if you do have something more hilly on the horizon, then they are definitely worth dropping in maybe every other week. So as I said, it's a continuous effort going up and down, and the beauty of that is not only are you getting the strength going up, you're also getting it coming down. You're bashing up the quads a little bit, which tends to be a massive weakness for a lot of us runners. When we take on these hilly races, it's not often the uphills that get us, it's the downhills. Ask a lot of people that go and run hilly marathons. The downhills are the things that really beat our legs up. And the fifth and final thing is hilly tempo runs. Using your tempo, using the hills in your tempo runs so that you can get the benefits out there. These don't have to be as steep as the hills you're using in your reps and maybe even the Kenyan hills. But a skill that a lot of us don't ever acquire or never work enough on, and I'll be honest with you, when I work on it for a period of time, the benefits I feel are some of the biggest ever, is actually learning to work up the hill, but not only up and over, regaining composure, regaining control of the breathing, and learning to continue to push down the other side. You start to tinker with that with the Kenyan hills, but because you're working on a steeper hill, it's kind of like all out up, all out down. With the tempo run, you're working sort of just under that threshold effort. You're working hard up a hill, you get to the top, and then you have to learn to keep pushing down the other side. Or even better, if you're going up and then hit flat, learning to keep going when you get to the flat. You don't ease off, you're continuing that effort as you go through the run. It is a skill, as I repeat, and I will repeat, sorry, that not a lot of us work on, and it's something that is so beneficial. Now, when I was mountain marathon training, I did 20-minute tempo runs, 40-minute, and progressed all the way up to 60-minute tempo runs. Now, naturally, the 20-minute ones were a slightly harder effort, the 40 was slightly less, and the 60 was slightly less again. But again, it was just working out an effort that was sustainable for that period of time. But as I said, as the block progressed, I could extend my efforts out longer. And once again, I came off the back of that and ran my, what is now, 3rd fastest marathon to date, but at the time was a huge marathon PB. And as a side note, I was training for a mountain marathon, but COVID came, and so I flipped into a road marathon just to utilize the fitness I built up. And I tell you now, training on the hills for that period of time translated to a very, very, very fast road marathon. Now, of course, trying to incorporate a lot of this in one go isn't going to be the most sensible thing. It might end up in injury. So you do have to be careful when changing up stimulus. And of course, if you're not used to hills at all and it's something that you're considering trying, then just go steady with it. Maybe just try the easy runs and the hill strides first. That might just be the ticket to get you started. Moving those easy runs on to some hillier routes might be a good idea. And if you have a session the next day, just consider easing off the gas slightly of that session, just so it gives your chance a body to adapt for the first couple of weeks while you're doing it. Or if you don't want to do that, the hill strides are a great option to start with. Then perhaps every other week you could incorporate a hill interval workout. Swap out your standard flat road or trail interval workout and swap it to the hills. That's the next place to start. And if you've got a few weeks to play with and you fancy something a little bit more challenging, maybe consider throwing in a Kenyan hill workout or two towards the end, or maybe even a hilly tempo. So that's enough of me banging the drum about hill workouts and using hills in your training. But of course, I'd love to hear if you're a massive fan of using the hills. They're not always the most fun thing to do, but of course they do get us strong and they do have a bigger benefit in the longer term. So do drop a favorite workout below that you love to do on the hills. Share it with people so they can get some inspiration, or let me know if you're not a fan of the hills. Either way, it'd be great to hear from you down in the comments section below. That's it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving it a like, share it with your friends, and of course subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and I'll see you on the next one.